Hello everybody, my name is Jan Dufour and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Today we're not making a card, today we're talking about coloring and the different ways that you can apply color. The ones I have here are not all the ways to color. These are the ones that are most common. And I'm going to just show you a little bit about how to do these. I'm not going to color everything in just because it takes a little bit of time to do that and you don't want to sit and watch me color. So first thing we're going to do is use ink and a blender pen. A blender pen, you get 3 of them, and they essentially have a fluid in them that can be used with any color. Sometimes they discolor the edge, but that color will not appear when I color. So there are different ways you can get ink. You can use an ink pad, which we're gonna do. And you can also use your refill bottles. And if you join during Celebration, which is only good until the end of this month, you get something that you can blend your colors on, something that you can put water in and use this as a cleaner. You just put your brushes on here to clean them off, and you get a chamois. And that is all in addition to what your regular join is. But you can also use just ink from your marker, just applying this to the marker itself. And like I said, the re-inker. So there's lots of different ways you can get ink. What I would tell you is that, I'll get a new one, if you will. Whoops, I got some extras over here. What I would tell you is anytime that you are using a water-based ink, which our ink pads, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to get it off. Our ink pads, our markers are water-based. What's in here is an alcohol base, I think. It's xylene-free, good for us. Acid-free. It doesn't really say what's in here. I don't believe it's a water-based though. Anyway, so while you're applying ink, it is on regular, or this is our regular basic white cardstock. I'm going to take some fluid or ink, and I'm kind of pushing it to the side because I want to get rid of a little bit of the ink. And what I was going to say was you have to be aware of how long or how often or how much you are applying this ink to cardstock, because it is eventually, if you put too much color, fluid, ink on it and work it continually, it will actually start to pill. You know, you get that raised layer of, that starts coming apart, basically. And you'll notice what I did here as far as coloring. I am not an artist. I'm not going to tell you I'm an artist because I'd be lying. But basically, you know that things beneath other things create a shadow, so you make it a little bit darker. Anywhere that you have these little ink marks or little lines, Stampin' Up! Is telling you that's where it should be darker. So you could put a little extra there and then just go ahead and color in the rest. And of course, the longer you go without picking up other ink, the lighter it is. But that's basically how you do any kind of ink, however you get it, and a blending brush. And like I said, to get rid of this, you basically rub it on white paper until it's clear. And then even though there's some staining on there, it's still clear. So that is using ink and a blender pen. And they look similar. I just didn't work it quite as much. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use watercolor paper. So I do have a couple of these. And that's because I'm going to be using brushes, watercolor brushes. That's these here. They come in 3 different sizes when you get them from Stampin' Up. You can also use a regular brush and just add water. Again, you can use those lovely things to produce water. So what I was going to do is basically, and I always have to remember that you open these not the way you would normally do it. Open is close and close is open. I'm trying to get this to let go so I can get some water out. And I'm just going to put a little bit of water. Can you see this? Yeah. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there just so that I can use it if I want to. Wrong way. Think of it as opposite of the way you normally do. There is already water. If you squeeze, you can get water on here. I just wanted something to be able to wash it away, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and load my brush. I am going to use this. It doesn't look like I'm putting anything there, but it really does lighten it. And I know I'm using a really big brush, but it's just quicker to do that. So I'm just putting down a light coat. And as you can see, you can kind of play with how dark or how light your colors are. And then if I use a lighter or smaller brush, let me wet this up, get a little bit of ink, put some ink there. And let me actually use a little bit darker ink. And I'll get his belly a little bit darker. And what I was going to say is if you use watercolor paper, you really can use or work the color a lot longer without pilling the paper. It's made to take the water well, if you will. And I'm just kind of thinning out the color a little bit so it's not quite so dark. I'll add a little bit more water, squeeze some over here, and then I can pull it in a little bit so we can get a little bit darker. And you really can work it a lot more because it is watercolor paper. It's made for that. So if that's the kind of thing that you like, again, as you can see, I've worked some color. So I'll put this one's a little bit darker. I used darker colors on that one. I'll put that one aside. Next, we're going to do watercolor pencils and a blender brush. I'll leave that there so you can kind of see. That's what I did there. Let me get rid of, whoops, that's the big one. Whoops, I better put this all the way in and this one in. Put my things away. All right, so we're going to use watercolor pencil, and it's exactly, now I'm not using a watercolor paper this time. Mostly, I'm going to wipe this off so I don't get it on the back of everything. Mostly because the blender brush, again, is not water-based, and so I can go I can work it more. The pencils, obviously can be colored lighter as you do here. And then, you can make it darker by putting more here. And a little bit darker underneath here. And then one of the things with when you color with markers or watercolor pencil, if you don't use the blender brush, you see the marks, or you can see where I colored. They don't smooth out together. But when you put the blender brush to it, let me use the other side. There's a little bit more juice there. When you put the blender pen to it, it really blends out those marks, so you can't actually see your not brush marks because they're not brushes, but the pencil marks. It smooths it out. And so this happens to be one of my sister's favorite way to color, is using the watercolor pencils with the blender brush. And then if you want it to be a little bit darker, you can add a little bit of darkness there and bring it in. and keep blending that out. There is a point at which you can't really continue to use the blender. It will start eating up the paper, but you can get quite a bit of contrast in the colors. So let's put that one aside. Next, I'm going to use just plain markers. I'm going to cover these up because I'm sure to stick my finger in it very shortly. It's just a matter of time. So in this case, I'm using, I used a darker one on here. I'm just going to use regular paper and start with the lighter colors than what I used. Oops, that's the skinny side. And I know that because this is a skinny line, this is a fat line. So this is my marker side. So this is a little bit lighter. And again, you can see the marks, brush marks, brush lines. Not quite sure what to call them. But you can color that in and then use a little bit darker on the edges and bring the color in a little bit. So it does blend, not as well because it is water-based and it soaks into the paper pretty quickly. Of course, you can always use the marker and the blender brush to alter that a little bit. But if you're going for trying to make it look a lot darker and a lot lighter, it's going to be a little bit harder to do it with the markers. This would be my least favorite, I guess. And not because it's a bad way to do it. It's just I'm not really good at it. So it doesn't work out well for me. But anyway, you do get some tones, different tones. So let me show you these two. This is with markers. So you do get some variation of color. But again, it's water-based on paper. If you did it on a watercolor, actually, I might have an extra, just out of curiosity. Let me see if I can get a better result using watercolor paper. Let me just see what happens. Well, you can certainly, that you definitely get a better result. See, I don't use this method, so it's why I don't know anything about it. But you definitely can work it more because it is more accepting. So you can blend that line away where the two colors were meeting. I can kind of work the colors and it doesn't damage the paper. So I would say watercolor paper would be best for if you're using our markers. The last one I'm going to show you is using blends, our Stampin' blends. They are alcohol based. You get them in a pair, so you get a light and a dark, regardless of what color you choose. I also have a lifter brush, blender, color lifter. And you can, this is my favorite way to do it. And one of the reasons is because you can use it on regular paper. Now, the ink I've been using the whole time is our Memento Tuxedo Black, and it's going to tell you on the back that it's not really, I think it actually says it. No, yeah, water-based ink, dye ink. It is a water-based ink. So normally you would say, well, you can't use that with anything water-based because it'll smear. And that is true unless you're a little bit careful. If there's a lot of coloring inside or marks inside, like for example, this is part of next week's. If there's a lot of lines and shading inside and you use anything water based on that, eventually you'll get, not even eventually, pretty quickly, you will get the black bleeding in. So sometimes I will use the water-based color and maybe do it in one of the colors I'm using. And the fact that it blends in is okay with me. Let me see if I can show you that. I don't have, I can take it out though. The set we're using, oops, that's not the elephant. Not that it has to be the elephant, but we might as well be consistent. The set I'm using is Little Dreamers. It's really cute. It is a baby set. It's pretty much all you can use it for. Let me get I will show you what happens when you use a water base and you work it, if you will. Let me use the back of one of these. So if I stamp it in, although that looks very dark, if I stamp it in the color that I want to help blend in, when I use the markers, I can actually pull the color in with it. And it kind of bleeds. You can't really tell. This is not a good example. I didn't really prepare to set this up, but you can actually use the color from the edge and use that to color in. I do it with flowers a lot. Like I'll stamp a flower in real red and then use the real red marker and actually pull in, or just use the blender and pull in that real red from the outline itself. That was a really poor example, but there you have it. All right, so back to the blends. Blends are alcohol markers, and so you can use them with the Memento ink and on regular base paper, and you have to work really hard to damage the paper. I mean, you have to blend like forever. I generally, if you listen, and you should go out and see actual artists who use these blends, they will tell you start with light, then work dark, or they'll say, I start with the dark and work with light. Do however you're comfortable. I tend to do light, dark, light. So right there, I haven't really got much shading. And the next thing you need to know about these blends is wait a minute before you work it, because the alcohol ink will get pulled into the paper, and a lot of what you think you don't like will disappear. Now I can use the same color and just use the dark version of it, and we'll put a little bit on the outside. And so I want it to draw in, so I'm just going to draw a little bit of this. You think, oh my goodness, that looks terrible. You're right, it does. But then I go back to the light and I kind of blend it. That's why they're called blends. And again, don't overwork it. Let the alcohol dry. It doesn't take long, and it'll seep into the paper. And then as you can see, it really is quite blended. The other trick, am I using? Yeah, the light. The other trick is I'm going to just show you, if I use, this is the light version, and I've just colored it in, and I haven't done anything else but color it in. If I give it a second, let the alcohol absorb, I can go back in with the same color and make it look like I've used a darker color. And I haven't, I've just layered it. It's on top of it. And again, it blends in. So this is using two different colors, the light and the dark version. And this is using the same one, just with an extra layer on the bottom. It is more subtle, but that might be what you're going for. So that's all I have. Like I said, blends is my favorite. That might just be because I am more comfortable with it. The color lifter, just so that you know, can erase mistakes if you go over the lines. But say I decide that this is just really a little too dark for me, I can work the color lifter and it actually takes out some of the color. Now, it's within reason, but it has lightened up quite a bit. I take it out, and then again, it's one of those things where you just wipe it off, and it's usable again without, and you just keep doing it. You can do it 3 and 4 and 5 times to actually remove color. You can't make it white again, probably, but I'll just show you right here. I'll just keep wiping at it, and you can see I'm actually removing the color. I'm making it much lighter. And that's how you actually remove it when you've gone over the line. And you can use it to blend as well. But so now I have this whiter spot or lighter spot in the middle because I used the lifter on it. And then you just clean it off by doing this. I hope that this coloring tutorial has given you an idea about what kinds of things are different kinds of coloring tools are available. And let me just put these out here so you can kind of see what they all are about. And this is the watercolor. If you have any questions, now if you're viewing me on YouTube, I have a blog, and normally I send you to my blog because I have a project sheet. There is no project sheet with this. It's just the video. But if you want to go out to stampmesilly.com, I do have some freebies. There's a whole freebie page that lists a bunch of freebies. If you have any questions or if you'd like a catalog, you can email me at jandufor@yahoo.com. If you'd like to purchase any of these markers or ink pads or anything else, you can go to my online store at jandufor.stampinup.net. Please give me either a thumbs up, give me a comment, let me know what you liked or didn't like. I do take constructive criticism. If you have any questions, you can also leave me a comment there. And if you subscribe with a notification once a week, I post on Wednesdays. And next week, we will actually have a stamp project. It's a box with a treat inside. And there are different things that you can do with it. So make sure that you subscribe and come back next week. Thanks so much. Bye.